Bombs Bursting in Air by Beth Johnson may seem like something that would have to do with war or something of that sort, but in fact, this piece is more about the struggle that one can encounter when having to relay difficult information to somebody else, and also the realization growing up that difficult information and tough experiences are something that are unavoidable and eventually we're all going to have to deal with. So basically, the piece starts with this sort of issue of them just all being out at Junior Olympics having a good time, while meanwhile the mother, the narrator, is aware of the fact that one of the family's friends' daughters is going to end up having, to have surgery on her brain because of a tumor, and the struggle that the narrator has in trying to get this information out. The younger daughter, Maddie, of course, like doesn't seem to really know, how, doesn't really make any difference to her, says she'll be okay. In school, we read about a little boy who had something wrong with his leg and he had an operation and got better. Can we go to Dairy Queen? So it's like when you're young, you aren't necessarily aware of the struggles of life. You just sort of like let them fly right by you. But the older son, he's more aware of the difficulties of it. One thing about this piece in terms of exemplification is how specific it is. It does go into that detail. Can we go to Dairy Queen, right? Like it gets right in there, and talks about how when you're young, your life is just sort of like following in this little sort of like step-by-step way of life. Monday meant gym, Tuesday was pizza in the cafeteria, Wednesday brought clarinet lessons, Hitler is a bad guy, all of these things that are very sort of simple. Those sort of specifics, though, really sort of get down into it. Then the narrator goes into this idea of, how the struggles in life, eventually they might seem distant, they might seem over here, but sort of the older you get, the more you realize that they can happen close to home, right? As it says, as we got older, the bombs dropped closer. A friend's sister was arrested for selling drugs. We saw her mother in tears at church that Sunday. I realize now that what sounded like anger was a helplessness to teach us lessons we were still too young or too ignorant to learn. That quote in particular is in regards to teachers sort of being incapable of dealing with tragedy when, children end up dying in car accidents, when things end up going wrong, stuff like that, that there's a limitation, there's an impossibility to deal with the bombs bursting in air that are tragedy, right? Then the narrator goes into the detail of when her own best friend at the age of 16 just didn't wake up one day. And that idea of the randomness of the bombs, how they can just happen at any point, saying like, didn't they know we were all doomed? And then, of course, life moves on. You go on. The bombs end up stinging less as time goes, but then another one drops. I fell in love for the first time, reveled in its sweetness, then learned the painful lesson that love comes with no guarantee. The marriage I'd entered into with optimism ended in bitter divorce, but produced 3 children whose existence is my daily delight. So it's interesting how it's like you get to experience the highs of love, the fantastical nature of it, but also with that comes the lows of when it doesn't work out, or, the struggles or the stresses that happen because the person who you love is the person who in effect can hurt you the most. The price of allowing ourselves to truly live, she says, to love and be loved, and it's the ultimate irony, the knowledge that the greater our investment in life, the larger the target we create. Which means the more you are a part of life, the more you are invested in, the more alive you really are, the more you are opening up yourself to possible struggle. But that ultimately, there's not really anything you can do about that except to go on living and just let those risks happen. It says, if we have the courage to keep our eyes open and welcoming, even bombs finally fade against the vastness of the starry sky. So no matter what, as long as we keep our eyes open, we continue to invest in the goodness of the world, that ultimately it's all going to be okay, because even the greatest pain, the biggest bomb, will fade with time.